Hello and welcome to another one of these conversation interview things. I'm joined by a true legend in the Gwent community. Many know him for his tortoise, the tortoise logo, Pet Tortoise, or more commonly known as Trynet. And thank you so much for being here, my friend. During the interview conversation, what would you like me to call you?
Tyler is fine. Trynet's fine. Whatever you're most comfortable with.
Perfect. You can call me John. Welcome,
All right.
Tyler. I'm glad you're here.
Good to be here.
Excellent. So to start, typically we get into these conversations learning a bit about your background. Some people talk about work history, education. Start wherever you feel comfortable, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I've been playing card games for pretty much my whole life. Ever since I was in middle school, I played Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic and traveled to tournaments. For
Mm-hmm.
most of my high school life, most of my social groups were around either Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic. I traveled to
Mm-hmm.
events every couple of months, went mostly
Mm-hmm.
across the East Coast, but occasionally to some other places too. Had some event successes, but mostly just went pretty casually. Had a lot of fun.
That's all.
Um, yeah, then went to school for computer science, graduated, and now I'm not doing anything with my degree. Sweet.
Interesting. Well, I feel like a lot of people these days don't do everything or anything with their degrees. If you don't mind me asking, what country are you in?
The United States.
Perfect. Excellent. We're both United States East Coasters, I see.
Yep.
Wonderful thing. I think, yeah, especially in the USA, most people who get a degree don't use it. There, at least it's just like a honorary badge. And then it's like, oh yeah, go pick a career in something else. I'm an international relations major. I've done zero things that involve international relations with my degrees. So,
Yeah, the nice thing about the computer science degree is there's a lot of little things that you can use it for. Like even just for streaming, I use I edit my videos and use a lot of my programming skills to streamline that process. I have a website that I maintain. I'm making a tracker for Storybook Brawl to
ooh,
uh,
fancy.
yeah, just like a lot of little things that help add to the content.
I like that. Applying your degree to other things that you built out, right? Because you built out a full time career being a content creator, a streamer. And I like that you're also, we'll get to it. I want to ask you a bit more about the CCGs early on, but I also like how you're leveraging your computer science background to add new content and tools to upcoming games like Storybook Brawl, which I've yet to play, but at this point, I've seen so many interesting people play that game. I'm like, I have this huge itch to try it because
I
it looks
think I have
awesome.
to take at least partial blame for Regime not making it to this open because I showed him Storybook Brawl and it's been all that he's doing.
You know what? It seems like a good sin to have. Like, I showed them a game that was so much fun that they just stopped playing Gwent for a while. It's good to change pace. So tell me a bit more early on about how CCGs kind of linked up with your social life. It seemed like CCGs you built were a constant source of social interaction and getting that competitive fix early on.
Yeah, so early on, it was just like a social group outside of school. Every week, every couple of days, really. There were
Hmm.
tournaments on, I think, starting out, there's a tournament every Tuesday, Saturday, and Wednesday that I would go to. And over time, this
Wow.
fluctuated different days, depending on what game I was playing at the
Hmm.
time or what stores were open at the time. And
Yes.
yeah, there for like 6 hours at a time, multiple times a week. And you just build friend groups that way.
That's
If
awesome.
there's
Yeah.
friend groups, you travel around the country to go to events when you want to play in events too. So, yeah.
And that's interesting. And I think what's funny about this, I'm not sure everyone knows what a card game shop is anymore because seems to be a dying attraction from, I know, my
True.
youth and your youth. You spent a lot more time there than I did. But you were really, that's a lot of tournament grinding. 6 hours days, 3 times a week. That
Yeah, it
is.
wasn't even necessarily
Mhm.
tournament grinding, but even just hanging out there casually, and even if the tournament's over, you stay there for a couple hours, play casually or trade or whatever.
That's awesome. And this was primarily, again, Magic the Gathering and Yu Gi Oh! Is that right?
Primarily Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic started a little more when I got into high school.
Interesting. So Yu Gi Oh! So you were spending that many hours at a card shop in middle school playing Yu Gi Oh! That's
Yep.
incredible. So when did you? So your first content on your YouTube channel is Yu-Gi-Oh related, and
Yeah.
there was ambitious stuff there. One time you commentated on the Yu-Gi-Oh Worlds
Yeah,
tournament.
so
So tell me about
2000,
this. Hmm.
2010 and 2011, there was no English commentary for Worlds. It was only in Japanese.
Hmm.
So me and a bunch of guys from the website duelistgrounds.com, which was an old forum, if anyone remembers what a forum was,
Love that
all
stuff.
got
Uh-huh.
on a voice call and streamed it to, at the time, Justin TV.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. The old school thing that would evolve into Twitch when they realized, oh, people don't want a music streaming site for garage bands, they want to stream video games.
Yeah, the reason that I have to be Trynet123 on Twitch
Uh-huh.
is because the Trynet account was registered on Justin TV. And at the time, if you wanted to stream on Twitch, you couldn't use your Justin TV account, but you also
Oh,
couldn't log into Twitch with your Justin TV account, despite the databases being linked.
so you stole your own username on Twitch, is that right? Is that effective?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious. That is so sad and so funny. I was always wondering, like, wow, you Trynet, got Trynet here, Trynet123. Stole it from yourself. That is tough.
And then I had to just rebrand across all the platforms because this is the account that I'm using and the primary way people find me.
God, that's really funny. Yes, okay, that makes sense. You were really old school. Justin TV was not known. Twitch was what came up and eventually, right, sold to Amazon for $1 billion. But Justin TV was the first attempt. Hey, people want to stream music in their garage, and you're saying, nah, we could also stream English commentary on the early 2010, 2011, 2012 Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments that are lacking it.
Yeah, people watched. I think I had like at least 100 viewers for the first day of Worlds. I think a little more for day 2 too.
That's awesome.
It's a fun
So,
time.
how old were you when you were doing that?
What is it now? 2021. So I was
Yeah.
like 16.
Dang, so that's fascinating. So you got into the content creation game early, even by most people. Like
Yeah,
that's when streamers were
I didn't.
beginning. Hmm.
I didn't really do much content creation then. I would
Hmm.
stream maybe twice a year. The World was a one-off thing.
Hmm.
Most of the content creation that I used to make was actually written tournament reports on forums.
Tell me more about that. I did not run into that. So you were writing up these tournaments, the results. Were you writing up the gameplay too?
Yeah, it's basically like you tell a story of what happened at this event. So you would go, like, for example, I went to a tournament in, I guess the most well-received one was there was a state level tournament,
Hmm.
and this is a weird story to get into without people knowing the background. There was a player who is a very well-renowned cheater,
Okay.
and he was playing a deck that did well at the previous tournament,
Hmm.
but everyone that tried to play the deck after did not do very well.
Okay.
So
Like
I
a.
was playing this deck,
Hmm.
trusting that this deck was going to be good at states.
Hmm.
He was also at the states tournament. I asked him how he did so well with the deck, and he basically just straight up says that he was cheating in the funniest possible way. And that was the big payoff for the story at the end of me doing terrible at this event in very embarrassing fashion.
That's awful. So basically, this guy just cheated and got a good tournament. So everybody said that deck is the breakout hit. They copied him, including yourself, and then everybody failed because you weren't cheating.
The deck was terrible. Not playable in the slightest.
That's awful. Oh man, good. The old
If only he told me
school.
before the state started, then I would have just switched to a real deck.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's really rough. The guy's like, yeah, I just cheated the whole way through. So you were okay. So you have the social life built. You're producing some content here there, and you're doing tournament reports. How competitive were you as a player? It sounds like you started off of Yu-Gi-Oh. Tell me about that.
Yeah, mildly. I would go to a tournament probably like every 2 months. I would travel somewhere for
Hmm.
a big YCS. I would go to a regional maybe monthly. The big event that I would try to spike every year was Nationals, because the
Hmm.
top 4 at Nationals got a trip to Worlds. And that was always my goal with Yu-Gi-Oh! I wanted to go
Hmm.
to Worlds at some point. I
Uh-huh.
made top 16 once, I made top 64 once, and then I bubbled another year. I never quite made it. That was always my goal, though. So I would always try really hard before Nationals.
Okay, that makes
The
sense.
rest of the year
Good
was
goal.
usually more casual. But
Yeah, casual,
Worlds was,
casual. But when it's time to try to get nationals, then once you're there, trying to get that world spot,
yeah.
grind it out, and that's impressive still. I know you didn't achieve it, but you're still top 16 is respectable.
Yeah, these were big events. Like one of
Mhm.
them was 2,000 people, one of them was 1,500 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not playing. You're playing, but you're showing the results, right? Your top
Yeah.
16 out of 2,000
Trying.
people is fairly impressive, at least in my book. So, yeah. Anyway, so you're grinding out these tournaments, and then you move away from Yu-Gi-Oh! Eventually. I noticed on your YouTube channel you stopped producing content. You sounds like transitioned in high school to Magic the Gathering. Is that about the right timeline?
Not really. I kind of played both
Okay.
most of the time. I never really quit Yu-Gi-Oh until I started streaming Gwent. But
Interesting.
for a couple years, I was playing both Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic quite a bit.
Okay, so you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic in high school, and you're gonna someday we'll get there. Quit, and move to Gwent off of the other game.
Yeah.
How did this continue when you go from high school to college?
Oh, it stayed exactly the same. I played just as much.
Did you really? Interesting. It just,
Yeah, sometimes it was even more. There were 4 tournaments a week, 5 tournaments a week sometimes.
man, you're a machine. You really built out. Use like education. Everything else, from what I can see, is just card games the whole way through. If you're spending
Yeah.
that many hours, that's awesome. That is fantastic. And was Yu-Gi-Oh the very first card game you got into?
That I actually played. I think I had like some Pokemon cards when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Uh Yu-Gi-Oh is the first one that I like really attended tournaments for and knew how to play. Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, so you go for college and you get a comp sci degree. Were you planning on using the comp sci degree, or did you just pick it up to say you got a degree and move on?
I wasn't sure. I did one job interview. I made it to the in-person interview stage at Google, but I didn't quite get
Mm-hmm.
the invite at the end. My main plan was to either open a card store. I was in talks to buy one of the local card stores, but that fell through.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
You knew. So you knew you
Or
want.
through college,
Mhm.
the way I was making money is I was going to these events and like buying and selling cards. So I was sort of very much in that.
So how did you intermingle that? Because you this is the moment where I think people stumble, is when they're transitioning like a passion, a hobby. In your case, it's your social life too,
Yeah.
and you start mixing in business, saying, you know what, I want to make some money here, maybe a living. Did that ever cause conflict? Was it very natural to you to move in that direction?
Surprisingly not. There's a lot of people trying to do that with
Mm-hmm.
physical card games. Like a lot of my friend group was either trying to do the same thing or they were really competitively minded.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually I feel like in a lot of these online communities, people begrudge people for trying to make money, but that was never really the case when I
Mm-hmm.
was playing like Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic. People just like understood this was the way things worked. If they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have a very easy way to just sell their cards to people, they would go to people who were willing to buy anything, but just at a slight markdown.
Yep. And then you resell later on.
Yeah,
That's
like
like
margins
that's
were really
normal.
small. Like you made like
Mhm.
10% margins when you bought single cards, but like that was fine because you did insane volume.
Interesting. So tell me why you wanted to do the card store. Just did it just feel like a very natural jump for someone who spent so
Yeah,
much time in a card store?
something that I've been doing my whole life, and just I was good at it. I knew what I was doing. I was developing a bunch of tooling around it too. Like while I
Mm-hmm.
was doing all this computer science stuff in college, I made a scraper to get data from a website where trading cards were listed, and I was monitoring this website, trying to keep
Mm-hmm.
up to date price data, generate my buy lists automatically, and snipe things that were listed for low values.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you're this is a fascinating moment. Going back to that earlier discussion, when you mentioned like today about storybook brawl, where you're already programming something to help people. Already at this point, you're applying your comp sci skills, saying, "Oh yeah, let's scrape websites, let's get the buy list generated, let's make this whole idea a lean, mean machine backed by technical prowess." I liked it. I like it. Makes perfect sense that you're willing to go into business if you're sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, I can plan out scripts that do half the work for me, or make sure I'm the most competitive up to date." I like it.
The problem is that's about where my business skills end.
Well, tell me.
That's
Well, the problem is you're in business today, effectively. A little bit different
kind
though.
of.
So you graduate college. I'm assuming,
Mhm.
unless you drop out,
Yeah.
then this would be a plot twist. You did not. You got for the in-person interview at Google, which is not easy to do. That's very impressive, even though you did not get the full job offer. But it doesn't sound like you interviewed any more after that. So what happened next?
I just committed to doing the trading card stuff. That's basically what I did for a year and a half before I started streaming. I was just going to multiple
Interesting.
3 to 4 to sometimes 5 tournaments a week, buying and selling cards, making connections, meeting people. And
Interesting.
meeting people obviously
Mhm.
is developing your client base of people who will sell you cards, and yeah.
So you just started doing that full time, and that was enough income for you?
It wasn't great. I made like
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 8,000 in the first year,
Okay.
but I was having a lot of fun with it, so I just kept doing it.
I respect that. That's good. You know what your passion was. You kept building it out. And one thing that's nice to think about many businesses is once you get going, it's you're building on top of what you did. It's not like
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
But like during
Mhm.
this was happening, I was in talks to like buy a card shop too. So that was something that
Ah.
was
So
being
you,
built up to as well.
right. So you're building these connections. You're thinking that okay, I'm gonna buy a card shop. That falls through, and then after that, you commit to streaming and content creation. Is that how this transition?
Basically, so it fell through 2 months before the Wild Hunt tournament, which was basically when I started streaming after I
Mm-hmm.
spiked Wild Hunt and won that.
Nice.
And then yeah, I just
Yeah.
kind of transitioned it from there.
Interesting. So then, when does Gwent enter the picture? Because in 2 months, you'll win this tournament and
Yeah, so
begin
I
the content creation
started
there. Mm-hmm.
playing Gwent in September of 2018. 2019. I think it's
Okay.
2018. 2017? Actually, I have no
Sure.
idea. It
Around
was one
there.
of these years. It was before
Yeah,
Midwinter.
no big deal.
What-
You played it.
Whatever year that was. I played a couple months. Midwinter happened. I took a break for a month, but
Hmm.
the Wildflow tournament was in February, and it was in Philadelphia, so it was a
Yep.
train ride away. And I felt like if I had to go to a LAN event
Uh
for
huh.
the
No,
game that
that's
I had been
super cool.
playing quite a lot of, considering it's the only real digital card game that I ever really got into.
Interesting.
So
Mhm.
yeah, no, so I just decided to pick it up again. Went to Philly, spiked the tournament, and yeah, that's how I started streaming. Really, talked to
That's-
Pumpkin. He said you should try
Mhm.
streaming, and decided, why not try streaming?
I think it's really interesting that you pick up a digital card game because so much of up until now, you actually the entire bit has been in person, mixing social life, buying and selling
Yeah,
cards. Card stores have been a big part of your life, and then you make this jump to a digital space. Do you feel like that was easy for you to do, a hard thing to do? Because I know
no,
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I never liked digital card games. I still don't really like digital card games. The only
Interesting.
reason that I'm still playing Gwent today is because of that LAN tournament in Philadelphia. I
Really?
would not have continued playing Gwent if not for Wild Hunt.
So you win the Wild Hunt tournament. Is it? Did you just? Is it that you carried the momentum from that into content creation and that became your full time job,
Yeah,
or
basically.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
yep.
So you get into Gwen, and do you have a particular goal while you're there? Are you trying to win Gwen Masters? Are you trying to be the best streamer possible? Or are you just doing your
I
thing?
was going in on the content creation. I wanted to see what I could make of it. I gave myself 6 months. I wanted to see if I could turn it into like a reliable revenue stream. I got partnered within 2 months
Hmm.
and just kind of went from there.
That's awesome. And you never. It doesn't look like you ever really looked back. I mean, you do some storybook brawl right now, but still, from
Just
what I can
gotta
tell, mostly Gwen.
just gotta jump in with both feet and see where it takes you.
Did you do you So you're doing all this Gwent stuff. When does Gwent casting enter the picture? That's another part of your content in a sense.
I I don't actually know. I feel like that was always something that I was considering being interested in, but there just weren't really opportunities for it.
Hmm.
And then what was the first event I even cast? I don't remember.
I don't know either, so it's all good.
Yeah. It just seems like one of those things that naturally stems from being a streamer that you just eventually start casting events,
Hmm.
at least to just like make some content that doesn't involve playing the game constantly. Just breaks it up a little bit.
No, it makes sense because you can definitely burn out playing the same game year over year over year. So what do you, man, we're like flying through your whole backstory here. So tell me a little bit more about how you built out your brand as a streamer relative to finding your niche within the space because you exploded from the sounds of it. You got partner in 2 months. That's not easy. There are streamers who will spend a year and not get partner. How do you really flesh
I
that
would,
out? Hmm.
man, I really don't know how to answer that. I always kind of just looked at it as I am going to play games, specifically play Gwent and chat with chat.
Hmm.
And I've sort of just made that my identity from the beginning. I would play games and I would try to be very interactive with chat. I wanted to really emphasize the whole like social interaction of despite like there's a
Hmm.
screen between us, I want to feel like I'm having a conversation with you while I'm streaming.
Interesting. Do you feel that helps you with the transition to digital card games as opposed to in-person ones that used to be very social?
Yeah, I think so. I like I said, I never play games. I never play at least Gwent off stream. I very rarely play games in general off stream. Just
Really?
chat and giving that. Yeah,
So wait,
social.
mhm.
Just like the social interaction is what makes it fun for me. I don't know.
That's so interesting. So you just don't play. So you don't play many games off stream at all because there's not that social element. You literally just say, "All right, I built out a career around this digital card game that isn't social, but I'm making it work. You have a chat, so it's kind of social." And as soon as you're done streaming, you're like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna play games. I'm here for the
Yeah,
social
like
elements."
Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh have had online clients for a long time, and I never really played them. I never got into Magic Online. I never
Yep.
played like Dueling Network or any of the YGO Pro things. Despite, as far as I know, they're pretty good. Just
Yeah, they
never
have.
got into it.
That's so interesting. You're really it goes all the way back to your schooling days. This is my social outlet, and then that social interaction. I wonder, do you just feel like card games for you have to be social, or else it's not going to be a great time?
Yeah, in general, I feel like games have to be social for the most part. I don't know.
That's so interesting. And then it's also I think finally really interesting to me they end up streaming out of all careers because pretty much every other career is social. You go to an office, down of people you can talk with, and there are careers that encourage you to be social and network and stuff like that. But you end up in that like pseudo social sphere where there is a screen between you and people. And
There is
Mhm.
something very appealing about being your own boss and like not having to necessarily answer for anyone else.
tell
I've
me,
al- I've always
mhm.
kind of gravitated towards that.
Tell me more about that. You notice when you wanted to be an entrepreneur, be your own boss, do your own thing?
I have problems with authority.
Do you have an example of that?
Uh, I don't like feeling like I'm obligated to do something. I don't know. It's just like a feeling that's deep inside. I don't like waking up and not knowing for sure
Mhm.
and not knowing if someone else is going to need me to do something today.
Interesting. So you said it's almost a degree of control you gain if you're your own boss, right? You're not gonna go to
Exactly,
work and someone's
exactly.
gonna say, "Hey, I need you to finish this random project by the day." The person in charge of it was sick, dumping it on you. It's your responsibility now. You have 5 hours.
If I
That
don't want to hit the start streaming button, I don't have to hit the start streaming button.
hmm. Elaborate there, because I've always had a very different impression, even as a streamer. I always thought
I
consistency was key.
I will hit the start streaming button every day. I am very consistent about it.
Okay.
However, if I don't press that button, nothing bad is going to happen to me. I
In-
might lose some viewers, but that's a risk that I can take in my head and make on my own.
So wait, hold on. Elaborate this, because this is almost like a paradox to me. You know you don't have to click it, but you still click it every day, even if you don't feel like it. You're gonna do it. Isn't that
Yeah,
kind of a bit of a paradox there? Like I want the freedom to not click it, but I'm gonna click it every day anyways.
I have the freedom to not click it. I can choose to make the decision to not click it if I want to, but I
Interesting.
won't.
I guess that explains it.
Whereas,
Hmm.
as if I have a job that, and like someone's gonna yell at me for not clicking the start streaming button. That's very different, right? Like I'm letting somebody
Yes.
down. I'm not
Right.
letting anybody down when I don't click the start streaming button, except myself, and
Well,
that's fine. I can
mhm.
let myself down.
I think it's interesting, or the viewers, but it's a risk you're willing to take, right? You say, "All right, I'm
Yeah,
gonna lose 2 viewers, fine."
the viewers aren't my boss. Whatever.
No, well, that's so interesting. Because you're right, there's a whole dynamic with your viewers. Some people are very beholden to their viewers, and some people are like, we have a give and take relation. It
Yeah,
sounds like you're more of the latter. You're gonna be there every day, but there is some give and take when you're feeling it, when you're not feeling it. And also that paradox of freedom. You just want to know you can make the choice and not have someone who's
exactly,
gonna yell at you saying, "How dare you not show up for work
exactly.
today?"
It just
Interesting.
removes so much of the stress.
It does. I would agree, and I also think you get to do something you like more often. No boss is
Yeah.
gonna come and say, "Hey, you need to do this job that you hate. You're gonna get the same salary anyways." But in your
If
case,
I want to switch, if
mhm,
I want to switch to Storybook Brawl at 3 hours into the stream instead of 4, I will.
interesting. So you do have some leeway there. That makes sense. You get to go do what you want. Do you? I guess it must be a lot easier in that case in terms of like doing the parts of the job you don't like, whatever parts those are, or relative to the rest, to justify it, saying, "Oh, this is for me. This is my business. What I want to do."
Exactly.
Instead of having to
Exactly.
suck it up for somebody else. Interesting. Interesting. Makes sense. And do you think from going forward you'll always be your own boss, whether it's stream or something else, and move on to another endeavor?
I don't know. I've always said that if I stop streaming, probably the first thing I'll do is I'll just like apply to another job at Google again and see where that goes. That's always the tech company that I'd wanted to work for if I were to work for a tech company.
Interesting. Why is that?
I don't know. I just always kind of like their vision. I like their products. I like their vision. From what I've heard, it's a great place to work.
Nice.
From what I've seen, it's a great place to work. They have a nice food court.
That's good. I mean, I enjoy their products. I think Google as a search engine is wonderful. And if they, feed me ads, fine. We'll call it a give and take. We'll call it a give and take. So, how long do you think you'll be doing the streaming side? Do you see an end in sight, or are you just gonna keep grinding?
Right now, there's no end in sight. Just on the grind. Can't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, I love the
It's an
perspective.
impossible question to answer. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. It's all good. I don't know. Some people have plans, some people don't. Most people are just, getting year by year. Do you have any particular goals in mind right now for you, your content, your stream?
Um, I mean, same as everyone, right? Like everyone wants to grow their stream a bit, increase their revenue numbers, increase their sub count, all of that. I would like to be able to have more consistent viewers when not streaming Gwent. Like that's slowly been
Hmm.
improving over the last couple of years, but it still just feels bad when you switch away from Gwent and you lose like 3/4 of your viewers. over the
It's
course of an hour and a half.
it's brutal. I was actually talking about this literally yesterday, doing another one of these conversations with the Obesity, also known as Tia, vice
Mhm.
versa that. But Tia and I, have you heard of? I'll just bring it up again. Sorry, people who've heard this before, but it's our conversation, so news to Tyler potentially. But have you read 1,000 True Fans?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you should read 1,000 True Fans. It's like a
Okay.
1.5 page thing. It's business related,
Okay.
on pointing out how if you can convince basically 1,000 people to be total fans of yours and give you
Hmm.
$10 a month, making $120,000 a year, and you're gonna do great. And I
Yeah.
feel that's the hidden core behind a streamer that makes it a long time and one that makes it seasonally effectively. While their game is popular, they're great, and then they disappear. Can you make
Yeah.
that switch to
I think
another
that's
game?
generally right. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of streamers that are like trapped within their game, especially in like the League and
Yep.
Hearthstone categories, or if they try to go away, like they face the same problem as
Yep.
anyone else who's pigeonholed into a game. No matter how high their viewer count is, they're not doing as well if they
Yeah.
try to switch to something else.
Exactly. And the
That's what I
people.
want to avoid. I want to not be one of those League streamers that wants to jump off a cliff every time they click the start streaming button.
I'm thinking I'm a cutie pie, someone who stops finding the game fun and just kept going for. I don't know if he even does it anymore, but he was the streamer for a long time, and he eventually hated the game. But click start streaming if you're gonna have 20,000 people watching you. It's a huge incentive.
Exactly.
But that paradox of look, Storybook Brawl may be a lot more fun for you, and you were less likely to burn out. But if you lose 3/4 of your audience, how do you bounce that? But I would say that 1/4 is those true fans that'll stick with you. Those are the key people to building out that freedom.
For sure. For sure. And like as you stream more
Hmm.
variety, eventually you build up that core base who wants to stick with you through different games.
Hmm.
I think you kind of screw yourself when you're only streaming Gwent if you're trying to break out into other things, because
Hmm.
people just like grow to expect that from you.
Right,
And
or
if you
the
don't want that, then don't build that expectation.
and it's tough. It's not easy because so Gwent's kind of a curse and a blessing. It's an unbelievably great category to stream relative to the amount of channels that's there, relative versus the amount of viewers. It's fantastic. It's one of the best games to stream on the entirety of Twitch. Period. Looking at numbers, but it means it's almost impossible to replicate any success you had there elsewhere immediately. So if I swap it over Fortnite, you could spend a year streaming Fortnite, probably get more viewers in Gwent in just a month of streaming than Fortnite for a year. That's tough.
Yeah.
So how do you think you're gonna try to handle this problem? Sounds like you have some initial thoughts. You don't want to be trapped. Do you have any plans for it?
I mean, I've really just been trying to make sure that I'm consistently streaming something other than Gwent regularly. Like usually for the first week or so of a patch, I'll stream just 6 hours of Gwent straight through, but
Hmm.
almost all the rest of the time I try to play some kind of variety.
No, I respect that. I think it's a wise approach. My strategy right now is just chess Thursdays. We'll see if we keep doing chess, but Gwent, chess, and then of course these conversations. Mix it up a little bit. Say, hey, I can do more. There's more than just me playing round one, round two, round three. Go, rinse and repeat for 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever it is. Gonna
Oh,
stir that pot.
it's
So
important.
it is important, or else you find yourself doomed. And I think it's also important to that group that's really invested in the streamer themselves because they want to see more of you, and so might as well give them different lights. Hey, this is what I'm
Yeah,
like
they're
when I play
interested
this
in what
game.
you're interested in, and show them what
Yes.
you're interested in.
No, and that's super interesting, especially like the rise of Instagram, which I do not use, but people want to see the into your life, right? In your case, though, speaking of social media, you don't use a lot of it. So tell me about this, because you are actually really hard to research. Because I sit there and my cheat for all the researching is Twitter, because everybody's like tweet, tweet,
I'm
tweet, tweet,
sorry.
tweet, tweet, tweet. You should be sorry. How dare you?
I hate Twitter so much.
Okay, I admit.
Just on a fundamental level.
I feel that Twitter is the one I struggle with the most. Twitter's as far as I go. Instagram is where I need to go next, but I'm barely tolerating Twitter. So YouTube community, I can do that. That I actually kind of like. I just write 3 sentences every couple days. It's good. But social media for me is this bane. But tell me more about your dislike of it, because you never use it. You're on your Twitter. You have written obligatory Twitter.
It's true. It's true. I just don't see. Okay, I see where the utility comes from as a content creator, but I personally don't like doing self promotion. So I personally don't see the utility in it. And I don't think that my random thoughts that I would fit in a Twitter are anything that I care enough to share. If I want to share something like that, I'll just like share it on stream.
That's interesting, but what happens if they're not able to catch it on stream, right? That's that paradox of I can go to your Twitter every day and find out what's going on.
And maybe you should watch the stream.
All right, I respect it. You know the line in the sand you want to draw. You've drawn it.
I hate Twitter.
That's
If I could
interesting.
just remove one website from the internet to improve our society, I think it would be Twitter.
Really, over Facebook?
It is not at least Facebook people use for like messenger and groups and events. There's some utility to Facebook. There is no utility to Twitter. It is just a blight.
Interesting. Well, okay, I can confirm that Trynet will not be putting out much content on Twitter going forward. So, sorry, people.
Bridge burned.
Bridge burned. Fascinating. And yet you have a great following on YouTube and a great following on Twitch without using any other socials, which is impressive.
I mean, I don't really use the YouTube community as much as I should.
YouTube,
like, I wrote an article a couple weeks back on data-driven gaming, and I just kind of posted on Discord, and that was it. I probably should have done like a community post. Maybe I should have posted to Twitter too. I do have some amount of followers there.
Don't you think that's, speaking as a content creator, don't you think it's kind of important if you're gonna put out an article with a ton of effort? Might as well post it everywhere.
It was on Discord. People care. They can see it there.
Well,
word of mouth.
That is, you know what? Its strategy is working. It's hard for me to judge when it is working. I do wonder if maybe we should just
it would probably be better. I have such an aversion to self-advertisement. I don't know.
Well, isn't that a tough part to be in business about?
Yes.
Ah.
Remember when I said that the only thing that I had going for me was like my ability to leverage my computer science skills in business?
Yep.
That's all that I have going for me. I'm telling you right now. You're gonna see a lot of weaknesses if you keep going down this line of conversation.
It is kind of a interesting thing because it's not just you. Every content creator, even I have weaknesses where I look and say, okay, I'm not gonna do the Instagram. I can tolerate the Twitter. I have no interest in taking photos. I hate photos. And so I guess we all make our compromises. It's interesting you made such a big compromise though, because Twitter, Instagram, really not much of a social presence, just like gwent videos,
I don't
stream.
see it as a compromise. I just see it as not part of what I'm doing.
Interesting. Well, it's working. Do you think there's anything you want to expand into, or are you just quite content of the YouTube and Twitch?
Like I said, I probably should use like YouTube community posts a little more than I do. I use Discord a lot. I'm pretty active with my community there.
Nice. Now, Discord, I think, is that hidden gem. If you can build a community there, I love just watching everybody talk. I'm like, this is fantastic.
You can actually have a conversation in Discord, unlike Twitter.
That's true, and then you can get more interactive and interesting. You
can have nuance.
You can have different sections too. So I know, like on my Discord, I have a hard discussions question. You want to bring up something political? Great, shove in hard discussions and be careful. And you want to, you can have that conversation there in a community, or if you want, have to build a community in a particular way for that. Or if you just want Gwent, hey, make a Gwent section, Gwent decklist section, Gwent tournament section, whatever conversation. And then, it's sectioned off. People can participate if they want. It's nice.
Yeah.
Good thing. All right. So tell me, I don't want to take this one from here. Covered social, business. Did you, when you started getting the content creation, have any people you really looked up to that you were trying to emulate?
Oh man, I feel like there has to be an answer there. More recently, I really look up to Ludwig. I've been watching him for a long time.
He's a monster.
Like 2+ years, but he wasn't really around much when I started streaming.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who. Like, I've watched streams for a long time. Like, I used to watch like old speedrunners, Worster, I Ate Your Pie. God, I'm sure you could like go into my followers list or following list and see a bunch of people that I used to spend a lot of time in the streams of. But
no, I think
I don't think anyone in particular when I was starting out.
Interesting. Ludwig being recent is also someone I look up to. He's just an absolute monster of a streamer, and cracks me up that he's basically making $1 million a month if he was full-time stream his life. And he realized at one point, oh, this will go on forever if I don't stop the streamathon, just forcibly stop it, because people will quite literally collectively pay me $1 million a month to keep going. That's
Yep.
insane. And for my own,
Man is good at his craft too.
yeah, I look at him like I will never try to overlap of content of Ludwig because I do not think for his particular style I could ever outdo him. He's insane. He's funny. He hypes stuff up so perfectly and naturally. I'm like, nope, 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 no, no, no. If I am streaming a game
Yep.
like him, doing it differently.
It's not even about the game, it's all the other stuff that goes into it too, like the
It's
little
true.
production stuff that he does.
Yeah, and the music, and also there's this creative content too. As you
Yep.
referred to it, did you watch the video where he talked about how to be a big streamer?
I think I did, yeah.
I remember at one point he's like or is that one or a different one where he's just like all the video game content, it's like filler. It's the creative stuff that makes us our channel and his thought
Yep.
into it and the execution on it. I still think about the time he casually bought somebody a car to thank them for like early mentorship, and how he had a very funny prepared joke when he was giving it over looking straight at the cam, and I'm like, dang it, that was really good. Like something like, oh, in America you just buy a gun, but cars, all this paperwork and crap, like what's the deal with that? I was like,
Yeah.
I still think about that. Now, do you ever, I know for myself on Selenium, he's who I compare against. I look at his long-term growth, I compare my long-term growth, and I say, okay, what's my rough schedule I need to do if I want to be a relatively successful streamer? So I just need to somewhat keep up with Ludwig and it'll be fine. That is
No,
Mhm.
I used to do that more. I don't do it anymore. I try to
Interesting.
avoid looking at any numbers other than my own and the general directory. So I'll make
Mhm.
sure that if I'm doing poorly, that the whole directory is doing poorly, and I'll make sure that like if I'm doing well, if I'm outperforming the directory or not. But that's all that I really care about. I don't compare myself to any individuals.
I like that concept of, well, you know what, I'm sucking, but if everybody else is sucking too, then it's just
Well, it's not
the
about
platform
everybody
thing.
else sucking. It's about Gwent sucking.
Interesting, just like in terms of overall viewer count and every other.
Yeah, like if no one
Mhm.
wants to watch Gwent right now, then it's not just that they don't want to watch me.
Yes, that's true. It's not a you problem, it's a Gwent problem. Also going back to that problem about being stuck on one game, right? If Gwent's sucking, it's you're trapped until you make an audience on multiple games, or an audience invested just in you, which is the ideal.
Yeah.
That's a smart way to go about it. I know for myself, I do constantly look at my numbers, but I'm always thinking about how do you blow up like Ludwig, and that is an intimidating thought. But that's for myself personally how I set the goal. I'm like, okay, Ludwig did this, and his viewership went like this, then went like this, and then it exploded. How do you
Step one is
engineer it?
appeal to people that aren't playing Gwent, because you're not going to explode with the limited viewership Gwent has.
Yeah, it's so interesting though, because Ludwig, he was a Smash Bros streamer. Like that's the thing people forget. And
I mean, he blew up doing like Nuzlocke and
yep,
getting over it.
yeah,
So,
getting over it.
yeah,
Nuzlocke.
it's just like popular stream stuff is what blew him up.
Right, he honed the craft, honed a streaming personality. Then he applied it to the popular trends, and then eventually was able to engineer the blow up. And it just fascinating. That engineering of the blow up is what I find to be the pinpoint that I'm looking at him, and knowing that that's the hurdle you need to do.
Yeah, like what was his like first big YouTube video other than like top 10 ice climbers moments? It was the Twitch Jeopardy thing where he got a bunch of other streamers and had that crossover.
Yeah, no, and then his creative content blew up from there, and he's a monster in the best of ways. Someday we'll get there. Someday, Tyler, me and you sitting there, 300,000 viewers, getting paid a couple mil a month to stream. It'll be a good time, right?
Sounds good.
So you're talk about your goals. You don't really have set goals, right? You're just building up the viewership, building up the revenue, expanding a little
Going
bit
with
of
the
other
flow.
games.
As long as I'm making a stable career out of it, I'm just gonna keep going with it.
Nice. That's fair. That's fair. Just keep going. And do you have any non-career goals that you're trying to achieve, like buying a house, etc.?
No, not really. Kind of just focusing on the career right now, making sure everything is stable. Kind of hard to. It's so volatile, right? Like it feels the income is so month to month. Even when it looks like it's going to be reliable, you're never sure if it's reliable.
Yep.
So really just making sure that I'm putting money into savings and going with the flow from there.
No, it makes sense, right? Because that's one thing working for yourself, especially streamers, have as a downside, which is volatile income. Some months it's exploding, and some months it's draining away quickly. I remember when I was talking with Specimen, and he mentioned he got a $3,000 donation one month. There was no way to sit there and say, you know what, this month is gonna have somebody's gonna pop on my stream and give me $3,000. There's no way to plan for it. You might say this next month, man, we'll see. Maybe we'll make out $10, maybe we'll make 100. Who's gonna resub? Who's gonna sub and join new, and who's not gonna come back? There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's no way to predict it. You can make your best guess, but it's only a guess.
Yeah, and
You never
then,
know. Like, even little stuff like what sponsorships are going to pop up, what's going to be on the bounty board over the course of the month.
yeah, you've done a really nice job of sponsorships for card games. I noticed it's one of the few things I could get from your Twitter is that you actually did a couple sponsorships. How does that whole process work behind the scenes?
Most of the sponsorships that I get are just through the Twitch bounty board, which is basically you go into your dashboard and there's a thing in partner settings where you just can look through various
Mm-hmm.
options for sponsorships, click on them, and do whatever the instructions are. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's like watch a 1 minute movie trailer. Sometimes it's play a game for an hour. That's where most of them come from. I think the ones from Twitter would be things that I was doing back when I was on F2K, which was a streaming team. I did a Magic Arena sponsor back when that first came out with them, and I
Mm-hmm.
did like a couple of smaller card games as well that I don't think still even exist.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I remember one of them. I think it was Warhammer. Was it Warhammer Champions? I think that was one.
Yeah, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions.
Nice, nice. I respect that. I looked at it. I'm like, yep, never heard of this one. This was news to me. You used to be on the streaming team, and then it sounds like you left it. Tell me
Yeah.
about why you got on it in the first place and why you left it.
So I got on it because like I'm not very good at trying to find sponsorships, and I was pretty small at the time. So and the bounty board didn't exist yet. So if I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have any kind of sponsor, I had to either go and seek it out manually, have them randomly contact me, and at the time I was like a 200 viewer streamer, so that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really going to happen.
Yep.
Or find some kind of agency, and they basically functioned as an agency where they would get
Mm-hmm.
deals, give them to me, and I could turn them down or accept them.
Yep. Because you're basically agent now. It's like a pseudo agency, right? I, as an
Yeah,
advertiser, can go or sponsor can go directly to a team. Say you have collectively a lot of viewers, and then you can distribute through there, and you get everyone gets a
exactly.
cut. Makes sense. Makes sense. And then you left though, because you were
Yeah.
able to get it yourself now, or
No, I joined Team Rankstar. I had left because I kind of didn't like some of the things that I was being asked to do. There were some services that they want me to use. One of
Mhm.
them was, I don't want to name anything, but there
No
were
worries, no
some
worries.
things they wanted me to push on the stream, and I wasn't super comfortable with it. I ended up leaving to go to Team Rankstar, it's currently dissolved, but it was cool for like a year.
Nice.
It was more Gwent focused too. A lot of the people that were on F2K before
Mm-hmm.
had eventually moved away from Gwent as like Homecoming hit, and like Croaky's left, and Ashlizel
Yep.
left, and basically everyone that was on the team from Gwent was no longer doing Gwent, so there wasn't even that crossover potential.
Interesting. So, I think it sounds like they were trying to push you for a time to push products and sponsorships that you did not like. Is that a fair summary of it?
Yeah, sort of. It was mostly the everyone else from Gwent not doing Gwent anymore,
Hmm.
so it just seemed like there was more potential for cross pollination on Rankstar. But it was definitely part of it that I just wasn't a huge fan of pushing some of the things they wanted pushed.
Okay, that
And
makes
it was again about
mhm.
that freedom, right? Like I wanted the ability to choose what I was going to do on stream.
That's a tough paradox, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm small. I need, I'm trying to make revenue. I'm trying to make it work. Especially when you're small, if you're doing it full time, trying to make
Yeah,
ends meet. And saying, oh yeah, by the way, this isn't working out. You gotta walk away from a team, do something else, a bit more Gwent oriented, hopefully better sponsor.
yeah.
And that's all going on while the game is getting a complete overhaul, which drove a lot of craziness. Because I will say, low key, I do miss still the 3-row versus 3-row Gwen and the sheer
I'm with
lunacy
you.
it was. I
I'm
lo-
with you.
I like that it's getting the game with 2 rows is getting better and better. They're adding more complexity back in. But boy, it went from this ultra complex wild game to
The
super
first
simple and then
the
slowly
first
building up.
year was rough.
Yes, because it was just a different game. It was just so simple. You think around there is when I was walking away as well. I come back every so often, but and then midwinter update did not help as well. All of a sudden, all the complex and interesting leader abilities go away, and it's like, oh, we have simple ones. But now I feel like these days we're getting a little bit more of that je ne sais quoi, that little bit of extra complexity coming back. And unfortunately, Syndicate's the one getting it first, so everyone hates Syndicate. But I do like the direction.
Yeah, I think Way of the Witcher was a really well designed set.
I
Big fan
agree.
of the direction they went with that.
I agree. I think everyone got pretty cool cards. They're bounceable, but brought in new archetypes, brought in new ideas for locations. And also I feel that carryover is starting the carryover that was in beta Gwent is starting to come back. I think I miss the days of having the Death Wish Harpy eggs carry over the Harpy to next round, getting a bunch of points on the next round instead of just disappearing. But we're starting to get that back. Even in the new set, they're starting to bring it back. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, for most of Homecoming, the only real carryover was card quality, and now you can finally play some cards that directly give you carryover.
Yep.
It's nice.
No, it's good. I'm imagining you're enjoying the complexity coming back a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily say complexity, but yeah, I'm enjoying the design direction.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I always view it as complexity in the sense of, hey, now it's not like 1 round, 2 round, 3 rounds. There are leader abilities that do weirder stuff again. But it's fair. It's also, given how interesting and unique Gwent used to be, Reaver Hunters, and all kinds of wild stuff, we're still a long way off from that.
A lot of the stuff in beta was actually really simple. Like, the order mechanic is inherently very complicated, right? And like the way leader abilities work is currently very complicated. Like in beta, the way it worked is you played a card, and then if you didn't have any triggers, your turn was over. Now, like you play a card, you got to look at your board, see if there's any orders you got to use, think about whether or not you want to use your leader.
That's fair.
There's a lot more going on in any individual turn. There's a lot of added complexity there, just into the rule system.
Interesting. It's so interesting. I've not viewed it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. You're right. You have orders and triggers and leader abilities. You can use all these other extra things to enable each round within the game, as opposed to just play a card, do its effect, and move on. I was thinking of it as like, okay, I have more rows, I have weather's a bit more wild, and all these everything felt more.
That's what made beta so good, though, right? Like it had these really simple
liked.
rules, this very, very simple presentation, but had all this complexity that came out of it. Whereas Homecoming, a lot of the time, tried to like cheat that complexity with a bunch of extra like mechanics.
That's fair. That's fair. No, that's a good take on it. I like it. I like it. So why did you stick around? Right, so you're going from this Wild West and simplicity, creating complexity in interesting situations to Homecoming patch.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy. I love sunk cost fallacy. For people,
I don't know. At this point, I was like making somewhat stable income playing Gwent, and I don't know. You don't really want to leave that behind because of a bad patch, right? I just stuck through 8 months of no content. I'm not going to leave immediately.
That's fair. So, did you see your income dip when everybody left from Homecoming?
No, it actually went up with Homecoming a little bit. There were more people playing with Homecoming than there were in like August and September.
Fascinating. It's just because it was all new and people are trying to get a lay of the land?
Yeah, it was new. There's actual new content for the first time in
8 months.
8 months.
Interesting. So you actually almost benefited from it for a time. But of course, now feels like a very different game.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know
what it is a different game. I wouldn't even say like Beta Gwent is the same game as Homecoming Gwent. They're just different.
I would agree. I think I would agree with that. I do miss Beta Gwent. I think that Wild West feel gone. That's right. Polished feel is not bad either. I will for people who don't know, by the way, sunk cost fallacy is the idea that I'm trying to simplify it. You can Google it for more simple definitions on Wikipedia. But your past efforts and investment into something or a choice does not actually affect the importance of a choice. The way I think about it is, imagine your dream is to climb a mountain. You spent 5 years training for it. You spent $100,000 on gear. You're at 1 mile of or maybe 100 feet from the top of the mountain, and then a huge storm hits. Everything else is sunk cost fallacy. Your only choice is 100 feet. I might die on the way, but I can accomplish my dream, and I might die on the descent, or descend quickly, give up on the mountain, and try again with another 5 years of effort, another $100,000 of equipment. The previous investment, your time, effort, and all that does not matter in that choice. It did not. Whether you spent $50,000 or $100,000 does not influence that choice of continue the risky ascent or back off. That's sunk cost fallacy. People lose so much money to sunk cost fallacy, especially with investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. They're like, I want my money back. But no, it's just the question is, when you have an investment portfolio, what is the best investment for your money now? And I say that as someone who loves personal finance. I'm not your financial advisor, and I have background in finance, Trynet, so that's why I naturally go in that direction when I start talking about sunk cost fallacy. I've seen so many people lose money to that. Anyways,
yeah, I mean, it worked out pretty well for me.
No, it worked out. You got rewarded for it in many ways. You are one of the top Gwent streamers. Period. You're getting enough income to get by. Sounds like you like what you do. You like being your own boss. It's impressive stuff. So Yeah, you're welcome. You have to say thanks. You're welcome. You earned it. I'm just stating facts. I'm spitting hot fire because it's true.
This feels natural. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fair. I confess I'd probably also say thank you so much and try to brush it off as well if I was in your shoes. Let's see. Have you ever considered doing side projects to help supplement your income, or are you just gonna stick with the streaming side? Because streaming income is not like Pokimane, not Ludwig income, where you're making a ton. A lot of it's just I make enough to get by, maybe a little extra, so I can save and invest, and that's it. Have you ever?
Yeah, so that's sort of why I started data-driven gaming, was to just get
Mhm.
another like source of ad revenue there. It's part of why I'm doing the tracker for Storybook Brawl, trying to like develop another potential source of ad revenue. Just get people into the website, see
Mhm.
the ads, and make money that way.
Nice.
YouTube was originally started as that as well. I didn't really use YouTube much until a year and a half into streaming. Really, I would maybe
Mhm.
upload a video every couple of months, and it wasn't until May or June of 2019 that I started posting regularly.
Yeah, I find that some streamers just still don't post regularly on YouTube, and it is so important, especially
Yeah,
monetarily. It is a good
yeah.
chunk of income, and all you do is take your stream and pop it over.
I I think what happens is people look at their Twitch ad revenue and think that it's going to be comparable to what they'll get on YouTube, and they have no idea.
Night and day. Twitch ad revenue is so bad. I've almost at this point given up clicking the run the ad button because it just matters
If it didn't
so.
disable pre-rolls, I wouldn't click it.
I agree, 100%. It's the only reason. I gotta get better about that. If I could shut off ads on my channel but keep subs as an option, just
Yep.
as a voluntary thing, done. 2 seconds.
Yeah, they're
I
garbage.
it's yeah, the ads on Twitch are just the worst, and on YouTube it's brilliant and genius, and I love everything about it. And so I will never go back. I feel like YouTube is the core if you ever want to be a streamer. You need the money will be tight. You need to dip every source, and that is the key source to be in.
Yeah, YouTube ad revenue is great, and it's also great for just bringing people to your Twitch channel. Discovery is so much better on YouTube than Twitch.
Uh-huh.
Like my
Yep.
average YouTube video gets like 9,000 views. My average Twitch stream gets half that.
Yep, 100%. And YouTube is the more sophisticated platform with better discovery. And you can, yeah, just when you post a video, you immediately get 1,000 views. In your case, get thousands upon thousands within just a 24-hour period. And it also stays there permanently, collecting more
Yep.
views as time goes on. Great, you get another 50 views in like a month. Like, okay, maybe that's not much, but if you have a catalog of videos getting an extra 50 to 100 views a day, it gets pretty out of control pretty
Yeah,
fast.
that's why evergreen content is really nice. I should be better about doing that. Like that's one thing that Spiro does really well with
Mm-hmm.
his talking about like
Gwent basics.
various high level Gwent concepts.
Mm-hmm.
I should do something along that line just for
Yep.
videos that people actually want to come back to a month after it goes up.
100%. No, evergreen content, for people that don't know, is content that doesn't age out. So, for example, if I or Trynet put out a deck tech on a popular deck right now, a month later when a patch hits, gone. No one will watch it. People's Bureau, for example, though, his top video, his most popular, if I recall, is an advanced mechanic video. It gets tons of views to this day. Why? Because it applies to Gwent ever since Homecoming. If you watch it when the day after Homecoming came out, if you watch it today, if you watch it in 2 years from now, it's gonna still be a great video, still bringing in viewers and subscribers, and that's incredible.
It's deceptive too, because I think
Mm-hmm.
on average they do get less viewers immediately, but
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to keep getting views over time, they're so worth doing.
100%. No, it is so key. I should actually, on a personal level, speaking of content weaknesses, that is probably one I could think about. Trying to
Yeah, same
find
for
to
me.
shore
Same for
up.
me. I think I've done like one video like that before. I did like an arena heroes tier list, and that people were still watching it 2 months later. I think it's one of my
Mm-hmm.
most viewed videos ever.
Yeah, yeah, evergreen content is deceptive and brilliant, and if you get a big catalog of it, you can have your channel never stop for years
Yeah.
and years, or at least for several years. It's wild. Tell me more about data-driven gaming. What drove you to create it? Was it ad revenue? Was it you're missing data and you want more? And by the way, and I would love to know how is it going, because not as you well know, but somebody that might be listening to this might not. Starting a business starts slow. We mentioned selling cards early on, right? You made $8,000 in your first year selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but you were going to pivot that into a card shop. You're going to build upon it, get a snowball rolling. I look at recently, a big example is Alpha Gaming, Harris Heller. He was able to build out. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I use his music playlist.
Beautiful. Yeah, so he built out. Well, you're using it then, and the name is slipping me, so I'm hoping you'll help me
Stream
out.
Beats?
Is it Stream Beats? Is what he calls it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he built that Stream Beats, right? The guy had to sink $30,000 into it before it turned any real substantial money, and then now it's bigger than his like nearly 500K YouTube channel and popular stream. A lot has changed. Tell me about data-driven gaming. How's it doing? What drove it? Love to learn more.
Okay, so Gwent Up was one of my favorite parts about Beta Gwent. Just something about having access to that much raw information about the game and being able to make decisions about it was something really appealing to me. I feel like that was one of the biggest things that we lost going from Homecoming, or going from a beta to Homecoming, was just we didn't have any kind of data faucet anymore. So with data-driven gaming, the tournament platform was coming out, and I realized we could get a lot of data from that if people were going to run tournaments on it. Because you can see all the decks, you can see all the matchups, what wins each individual game, what players decided to ban, all of that. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to scrape that data and make a sort of a Gwent Up from it.
Interesting.
The problem,
so,
the tournament platform sucks and no one runs tournaments on it. And
it does. It totally does.
Yeah, so it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
I have like all this tooling around making it making all these graphics and deck list views and compiling data into like tier lists and all that, but just none of it matters because there's not enough data. Like they still don't run the top 64 qualifier of Swiss on the tournament platform.
Do they really
because
not?
The tournament platform can't run Swiss.
That's bad. If you can't run your major key parts of your tournament on a tournament client, it's not a vote of confidence to the client. Okay, that's pretty bad. I didn't realize that. And then when that, wow.
I just get really sad whenever I think of what my plans were for data-driven gaming and what's come of them.
Yeah, no.
Because it's not even something that I could do. It's just the platform that was supposed to work doesn't work.
Interesting.
Reliably.
Do you find that to be a bit of a curse though? So when you switch over to like Storybook Brawl, right? You're gonna lose a lot of viewership, but simultaneously for this side business, there are this other source of revenue. Gwent's a terrible game choice for it because Gwent does not provide data that you're looking for. I feel like you kind of got yourself in a bit of a catch-22. You play Gwent a lot because it funds your business, but simultaneously, the game you're known for does not allow you to get the data you need to build out your other business.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. Like, I thought the tournament platform was gonna... Like, I didn't have data-driven gaming until the tournament platform. When the beta came out and I realized what data I could get from it, I knew the tournament platform was a little buggy, but I figured they'd fix it over time.
But then they never did. So
it's been a year.
So the goal of data-driven gaming, provide a bunch of data from ideally all these different card games. So goal originally was Gwent, and then use ad revenue to continue to fund it and make some money off of it. Is that right? In terms of monetization?
Yeah, basically. Just like another source of ad revenue, a source of information for the community. Nice. Something that I can refer to in my content.
Yeah, like that's like kind of a nice triple threat, right? Community benefits, you benefit for your content, and of course other people benefit for their content. And then, you get a bit of ad revenue on the side.
Like back in beta, looking at the Gwent Up meta snapshot every week was content. Like just seeing what was doing well, what was overperforming the previous week, what new techs were starting to be used. All that stuff was really cool to look at and talk about.
No, it makes a lot of sense to me. That makes a lot of sense. And how, if you don't mind me, you don't have to give me numbers, but like, how is it doing? Is it 1% of your income? Is it $10 a month? Is it a Chipotle burrito bowl? Like, what are we talking about?
It pays for the hosting. It doesn't make anything at this point.
Okay, pays for the host. You know, it's not too bad though. You have an idea.
Yeah, it has potential to scale. It's not losing money. It has potential to scale.
You know what? If it pays for hosting, at least at the start, right? It's not quietly draining, making money. And you have plans to build it out more, right? Because Storybook Brawl is becoming slowly but surely more and more popular. Hey, if you're
that's what I've been doing for the last week, is just making the tracker for that, trying to gather data from that. Hopefully I'll have something that I can publish within the next week or so.
That's awesome. Then, of course, at that point, hey, if it drives even just a little more traffic, now you have a small profit. Not breaking the bank by any means, but you're, a little something, a little trickle in, another revenue source is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Do you intend to in the future expand if data-driven gaming does well, Storybook Brawl into other games as well?
Uh, it depends. Probably not, but it really just depends what opportunities arise. Like, I wasn't planning
Mm-hmm.
on making this when I realized that Storybook Brawl existed or when I started playing Storybook Brawl, but there was easy log files that I could access,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't anything like this in the community yet. So it just seemed like something that I can contribute.
Interesting. And yeah, I guess if it goes well, would you look to other card games to say, "Oh, you're a new card game. Let me add you to data-driven." So instead of
I
having
don't
to,
know if I'd ever seek that out of a card game that I'm not already enjoying, but
mm-hmm.
maybe. I don't know. Devs reach out to me.
Yeah, a little call to action. Like if you're a dev, and you have a small card game, hook me up. Whether it's cards, maybe Mythgard, you never know. Build out the fan site they need. Do you have any other little side projects that you are thinking about doing that might be able to help you supplement income?
Not so much for supplement income. Last year I spent pretty much all year basically working as a full-time job developing a digital card game. That was fun.
Tell me about that. I heard rumors that you were making your own card game, and so I was curious.
Yeah, Untitled card game. It is completely playable in your web browser.
Is it really? What's
I
it called?
commissioned art for it and everything. Yeah, I can send you a link. 1 second.
Unfortunately, Discord's open, so I can't access it. What is it called?
Uh, Untitled card game.
Entitled Rogue Card Game. All right, let's check this thing out.
Row card game. Go to datadrivengaming.net. There should be a link in the top bar.
Perfect. Okay, data-driven gaming. You tell us.
Top bar, USDG play.
There we go. Interesting. And do you make this all yourself?
Yep. Yep. Looks like it's all still running.
That's awesome. No, there's a little play
Yeah.
button. Nice. That is super cool. And you did this all yourself?
Yep. Pretty much. I commissioned art, but yeah.
That's fantastic. You commission the art, you make the game. Do you think you'll try to keep expanding on it, or is it like a one and done kind of project?
I wasn't sure what it was going to do. I was going to see how my community responded to it, and then if there was enough positive reception, I could develop a player base. I'd maybe continue working on it, but it just kind of fell off. There were a few people that were really passionate about it, but not enough for me to justify how much time it took and how much money I was spending on art.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes sense because there's a huge fixed cost to any card game. Once you have because not only do you have to program it, that's a fixed cost in terms of time for you because you can program it yourself. But then commissioning it, you have to pay all the artists, and then from there, more scalable. But if there's not enough of a community, you're kind of stuck. Do you think you'll take a shot at making your own card game again in the future?
I don't know. I had another project that I started working on in January, but then I realized how much work I'd have to do, and the concept was basically before I started streaming, I was actually working on a card game that I sort of dropped. I tried to reboot it a little bit. The idea was a card game where all the cards were procedurally generated. So imagine like every card in the game is like a Diablo item.
Interesting. Just every time it's a little different, and so you can never be fully on your feet. You have to be quick thinking of the tools.
Yeah, it's like every season you would like open different packs, and maybe there'd be an eternal format too, where you can access all of your previous season's decks. But that was the idea. I had like the rules engine in place. I had it all working, but I needed to like make a front end. I hate client side work.
Interesting. No, that's a fascinating idea. I've seen one game attempt that. I've seen one, but it wasn't nearly as bold. Have you heard of Chaotic?
No, yes, I think.
Chaotic was this
Maybe.
weird card game. What the gameplay itself was really bad. It was badly designed in that regard. But they had the idea of physical card packs. Each one comes with a unique code. You enter the code online, you get the card there. But every unit had like 4 stats, and the 4 stats were randomly generated every time. So it was with set values within a range.
Interesting.
I don't think it was good design. It was bold though. The bold vision
I had some really
there.
complicated effects that were procedurally generated.
Did you
So there were
really?
things that would like spawn other cards and like chain effects and had, like a
Interesting.
whole rule stack that was all procedurally generated.
Fascinating. You're just about to bring that to Magic the Gathering Arena. Not quite as bold, but the crate stuff and all that. But it sounds like you're going
Oh,
a
sure.
step further, which is YOLO. Let's do something really crazy.
Yeah,
I like it.
Basically throwing the card designer out the window and saying, okay, I don't need your curated experience. I just want to play cards.
That's awesome.
Which I don't know if is a good idea. Like, it's very experimental. Like, maybe it is very important that there's a designer to curate the experience. But it seemed worth trying out. It was a cool idea.
Hey, I respect it. You gotta try crazy ideas to find out if they work, or else you don't get some really interesting games. Like Super Hot wouldn't exist, which is, time moves only when you move. So that's a weird one. Shooter. Or MOBAs wouldn't exist. Like, hey, let's just remod the heck out of Warcraft 3 and make it hero based with lanes and YOLO. Let's see what happens. A lot of great concepts wouldn't appear unless somebody said, let's YOLO it and see what happens.
Yeah, that's how innovation happens, right?
Exactly. Okay, so I think I'm a pretty good. You are an interesting person. I think I have a good understanding, right? You don't like authority. You like being in charge yourself. You are a man of many ideas. You have a bunch of ideas. Whether you're making your own card game, whether you're programming data-driven gaming, whether you're streaming, whether you're producing YouTube videos. You're very. You've been playing card games your whole life. You're a fascinating person, Tyler. I like it.
Thanks.
Wait, dang, I just had a question for you. Give me a second. That train just departs the station. Sometimes it's just how it is.
You be like that sometimes.
It's a tough moment. I gotta be honest. If I had a thought of like, I have a really interesting thing to ask him, but nope. So interesting. Why don't we go ahead and unless you have a topic you would like to bring up, you can transition over to Q&A or find out if a mod in my chat showed up to do Q&A. First question. One I think you've probably answered on stream. Why do you refuse to go to pro rank and you stay at rank 1, you don't accept the terms and conditions to move up? Why?
Yeah, so as we said earlier, like the social aspect of card games is always really important to me, and I feel like removing the usernames really takes away from that by not knowing who you're playing against as you're playing the game.
Interesting.
It just wasn't fun. I played in pro rank for 3 months after they made the change, but I was real close to just like stopping streaming and playing some other game.
Interesting though. It seems you need that social element as a person. It makes sense, right? This whole life has been social. Card games have been social, and the idea of only finding out the last 2 seconds of the game who you're playing against is a lot less fun than knowing, oh yeah, I know this person, let's play against them.
Yeah, like the crazy thing to me is like people in chat after I give that explanation, they'll be like, but you can see at the end of the game who you played against.
Yeah.
Like the game's already over, who cares?
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. So like a good example, I remember I was ranking when Life Coach came back recently. I ran into him on ladder and it was super exciting because everyone realized who everyone is playing against, and all of a sudden there's hype in my chat, they're hype in his chat, and all of a sudden my pressure level went from like here to here because I'm like, man, I want to crush Life Coach before he gets to the pro rank because we're fighting it out in rank 1, and I'm like, I want to send him down. But if I get to the end of the game, find out Life Coach is like, oh, that's really cool, I played with him. There isn't a like little extra bit of knowing who I'm against and having that extra pressure. And that was for me a really fun game, and I won it because I won a 25% chance on a pyrotech, and that was the only reason I won the game. But that moment would have been a lot less fun if I didn't know.
Yep. Some of the most fun experiences playing Gwent is like when you queue into like Adzakal or you queue into Kolemon, especially on stream too. Like the whole chat gets hyped. You're gonna beat this player is like number 3 on the leaderboard. It just adds so much more pressure to the game, so much more engagement.
Yeah, and I remember, and like on the other flip side too, it's for every other player as well gets more hyped. I remember, it happened like a couple days ago, I had destroyed my MMR trying to see how far, I think I was horn bluffing or going for like 5 Maddox. I was doing a horrible meme deck. And it was, I pop up to the pro rank ladder, and I was climbing back up. I'm like, all right, gotta fix my MMR a little bit here. And I played against someone, they got to the end of the game, and then they popped into my chat afterwards, like, oh man, I would have tried harder had I known it was you. And this person would have had a much better experience knowing it was me and trying to stop my climb back up to an OK MMR. But they're like, I don't know who this is, who cares? And they just, played casually.
It's another game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But they would have meant something to them, a more meaningful and rewarding experience if they just played it out and known who they were playing against. That, oh, I can stop John getting back up. Well, by all means, why don't we tear him down? And that, I had the same feeling towards Life Coach, and you have the same feeling towards stopping Coleman's ascent. Like these are fun moments, but they're deprived that the name isn't there. Respect it.
Exactly.
No, I get it. Next question for you. I think it's the other one. I see another question got added while we're chatting here. I'll ask that one too. Let's see. Next one. Why do you intentionally play without any cosmetics or premium cards?
Okay, so the no premium thing is Mostly just because I really like the way standard cards look, and premiums just
Hmm.
like feel a little buggy most of the time. I'd rather just
Interesting.
play with a thing that I know is stably good. Like sometimes premiums just like turn black on you. Sometimes
That's true.
there's like clipping issues with the animations.
Yep.
Whereas you always get consistent quality with the standard cards. So just play with the standard cards.
Interesting. Is that was
Uh,
that true when you played Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, avoiding hollows and keeping non-hollows in your deck?
in Magic, yes, but that's because it was kind of uh, Magic foils were really bad. They still
Mm-hmm.
are really bad. Where they're like warp.
They've gotten
In most
worse.
tournaments, if your deck isn't like a certain percentage of foil cards, you're just not allowed to play with foils.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting.
yeah,
And what Yu-Gi-Oh? Mm-hmm.
in Yu-Gi-Oh! Less so. I was pretty big on the expensive blingy stuff, but
Interesting.
hmm.
You know the quality you want. You're like Magic foils, not up to stuff. Gwent clipping issues, turning black sometimes. No, 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 no. Yu-Gi-Oh, all this stuff is if it's foil, it's flat, no big deal. We'll take it. I'll take the 14 different foiling options they have in that game and the six
Only the
different
most
ways.
expensive one, not the 14
Oh no,
most
you
expensive.
need the secret
You gotta
rare.
have.
Is it secret rare, ghost rare? There's so many
Depends on the
rarities.
card.
Depends on the
Sometimes the
card.
ghost rare is the most expensive. Sometimes the super rare is.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, we gotta shell out, have that bling deck.
Gotta
Let them
know.
know when you set that tournament table at nationals that you mean business.
As
Respect
far
it.
as the other cosmetics go, the things like the boards and the card
Hmm.
backs and all of that, it's mostly just because you need to change them every time you change decks, and I can't be asked to do that.
I respect that. Nope, it has no bearing on the game. I eventually, for myself, I had to switch off the wooden coin. I'm glad they finally gave free coins out because I don't spend money on the cosmetics, but I'll unlock them from the reward book, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll play with the fancy stuff. But it drove some people nuts. It was like, John, you're still using the wooden coin that looks terrible. I'm like, yes, yes, I am because they haven't given me a free coin, so I'm gonna
No.
use the wooden coin until somebody gives me a free coin to replace it. But I respect it, right? If you're switching decks over and over and over.
Yeah, like there's streams
Mhm.
that'll switch decks like every hour, every 2 hours. Like I'm not changing my cosmetics every time I do that. That's a huge waste of time.
No, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. I remember a question I had from earlier though that I do want to ask you now is how many hours a day are you working? I find that to be interesting for people.
So I stream pretty much 6 hours a day, pretty consistently. My editing pipeline is pretty easy. It usually takes me like 10 minutes of actual work to edit my videos together, and then
Mm-hmm.
I write my descriptions, which, depending on how much I care about writing a good description, can take anywhere from 25 seconds to 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So
Um, yeah, and then like other projects, I don't know, it depends. Like the last 6 months, I've been super lazy. I spent a lot of time just like watching random shit on YouTube. But the last like week or so, I've spent 6 hours streaming, 8 hours working on like the storybook brawl tracker and
no,
other data driven gaming stuff. So it
okay,
really depends.
interesting. It just depends on the projects, what situations is. And do you work every day? Do you have a day off each week?
Nope, no days off.
Brandon, I respect it. I respect it. All right. Next question for you. I think it's probably the final question. It's a light one. How old is the tortoise, Mr. Nolan?
I don't know. So I got him when I was in fourth grade, and he was smaller than he is now, but
Mhm.
I think at the time he was still like a year or two old. Uh, So it would make him around like 2021, but I don't have an exact birth date.
So he'll probably be with you your entire life, if I recall tortoise
Yes.
ages. Wow, wild.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a partner longer than any other human partner, other than like a parent, effectively. That's
He
wild.
is uh he is the great shelled tortoise.
Respect, I respect it. Well, Trynet, aka Tyler, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. This is your
Oh, John.
moment. This is your moment. You can say anything you want. You can shout out. You can plug stuff, whatever you'd like. Go for it.
Trynet123 on Twitch, Trynet123 on YouTube. I play some Gwent, play some other games. Lately, a lot of Storybook Brawl. Turning back the Gwent a little bit, I think for the next few days it's going to be like 3 hours of Gwent, 3 hours of Storybook Brawl, or maybe even a little bit more biased in favor of Storybook Brawl. But yeah, that's 7 days a week, starting at midnight Eastern time till 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Thing. Well, Tyler, thank you so much. Also, why, if you don't mind asking, I got a question. Why do you stream so late? Are you just nocturnal? Is that just how this works? I just kind of clicking like, oh,
Kind
you're in
of.
East Coast
So
USA. Uh huh.
when I started streaming, it was a really good time slot. I would get the pumpkin host at midnight, and there wasn't a whole lot of competition. Like Celebrate streamed every couple of days. Croaky started streaming like 3 hours into the stream, pretty reliably, but like I had like 3 hours of no one else in the slot,
Interesting.
and I just kind of stuck with it. I don't know. once you have a sleep schedule, it's easier to keep the sleep schedule than try to move around. And like eventually people moved into all the other slots too, right? Like
Yep.
right after me was Spiro, then after Spiro was Pumpkin, after Pumpkin was Bushy, and
Yeah.
yeah,
No, there's a bunch of it's all there's a whole game of time slots. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for coming on my show. I appreciate it. Definitely, as you said, and for everyone listening to this, catch Tyler at Trynet123 on Twitch because he stole his own username. Go ahead and check out his YouTube. You can follow on Twitter and probably not see anything, but it is there. And then Data Driven Gaming, if you're looking for data about Storybook Brawl, keep an eye out for our Storybook Brawl. Keep an eye out for that too. Tyler, thank you so much.
it's great to be here.
Shout out to McRandar and Ahmed Ali for all their support on Patreon.